today. First of all, I will walk you through a brief introduction on dashboard design principle. Next, I'll cover the ideal data structure for dashboard, how to format your data as an Excel table, and remove duplicate records from the table. We will then start to create elements for dashboard, such as pivot table and PivotCharts, customize the formats, and format the charts using the chart tools. We will look at how to create a combo chart to combine two different chart types and add a linear trend line to a column chart to show data trend, add timeline to filter data by years, quarters, or months, as well as slice the data with slicer. If you have never used a slicer before, it is extremely fun. I'm going to show you how you can connect the slicer and timeline to multiple pivot tables to build an interactive dashboard. Finally, I'll show you how to design an interactive dashboard to visually represent your data on a single screen. Now, let's start with these questions. What is a dashboard? A dashboard is a visual display of the most important information you needed to achieve one or more objectives, consolidated on a single screen so that the information can be monitored at a glance. A dashboard would instantly answer important questions such as which markets are performing better and which products should the management focus on. An Excel dashboard is an amazing tool when it comes to tracking KPIs, comparing data points, and getting data overviews that can help management to make sound decisions. Let's go through some of the dashboard design principles. Of course, there are still a lot more. So with this 1.5 hours, I'm only able to cover these 5 main principles with you. First of all, define the purpose of the dashboard. You can categorize dashboard based on their purpose, such as analytical, strategic, operational, or tactical dashboard, and so on. Next, choose the right representation for the data. For instance, the right elements, charts, colors, and user interface. We usually try to show multiple types of static or dynamic information changes over time. If you're starting your dashboard design from scratch, you should consider the visualization based on what user need to see. Number 3 is you must have a clear and consistent naming conventions and date formatting. Okay? As the main goal of the dashboard is to get the message at a glance. Every little thing counts. The biggest benefit of using a clear framework is data consistency. If your data is named the same way in each tool, it's easier for you to use those tools. Number 4, you need to define the layout of the dashboard. This is crucial for dashboard design as you will need to organize a tons of information in a seamless way. Defining grids will help you to achieve effective alignment and consistency with little effort. Create a basic structure, a skeleton for your design. And finally, you need to define the flow of dashboard elements to prioritize important information. We're making decisions on what information should go where. Keep this in mind. That naturally top left corner of the screen will get more attention. So try to position key information from left to right. This is based on the way we read information. And when they will finish reading the first row, the user normally will move down to the next one. Very soon, I'm going to show you a quick and easy way to build a dashboard using pivot table and pivot chart. Please be mindful that not all data is suitable for building pivot table report. The best data type is transactional data, and the ideal format is tabular. Transactional data is any type of data where each record corresponds to a measurement of something. For example, it could be a record of sales in a departmental store or a measurement to the number of visitors on a particular day. Your data must be organized in one record per row and must have column header. It is important to make sure your data has unique column heading before you start to build a pivot table. You must remove all blank rows from the data and make sure it is in consistent formats. If you have got a lot of empty cells in your data, try to fill in blank with zeros or respective tags. Okay, over here, this is sales data I'm going to use. There are over 60,000 rows of data, and the dates span, all right, from years 2013 to 2014. So you can see the data is in tabular formats. Before you start to build a dashboard, you need to have an idea of workbook layout. Use separate worksheet for source data, analysis table, and dashboard. So I'll have one worksheet for source data, and I'm going to format my source data to Excel table. As for analysis worksheet, you can use one sheet for each pivot table, and the dashboard worksheet will contain dashboard elements such as pivot charts, slicers, and timeline. I'm going to use Excel 2016 to build this dashboard. Okay, let's get started. Okay, with the dashboard element. Now on my dashboard, I'm going to build 5 charts, which is charts to show sales by month, sales versus quantity, sales by market, 2013 sales trend using the linear trend line, as well as 2014 sales trend. So on the dashboard, the slicer will be added by year, quarters, month, and products. So I'm going to connect year slicer to the first 3 charts: sales by month, sales versus quantity, and sales by market. So the quarter slicer will be connected to sales by month and sales versus quantity, only 2 charts, whereas the month slicers will be connected to the first 2 charts as well, sales by month and sales versus quantity. As for the product slicer, I'm going to connect it to all the 5 charts. So which means when I click on one product, all the 5 charts will update to specific product sales. This is the dashboard I'm going to create in a short while, whereby all the slicer I place on the left-hand side and the charts I'll place it on the right-hand side. And this is a layout and the flow of a typical one-screen dashboard that you can consider to create. So of course you can move the slicer to the right-hand side, okay, if you prefer in this way. Okay, let me open my Excel file. I'm going to build this dashboard using Excel 2016. And let's get started. Here's our sales data. I'm going to show you how quickly and easy it is to update the dashboard. And the first step of creating an interactive dashboard fast and smart is to format the data in Excel table. Because any pivot table, pivot charts, and formulas that reference the tables automatically upon refresh will pick up any changes of the data. The fastest way to create a table is to press Ctrl T. And verify that my table has a header and just click OK. This will convert the data into Excel table. So the first thing I'm going to do is give my table a name. Okay, over here, I can call it sales data. Next, I'll build a pivot table using the features called Summarize with Pivot Table. Before I do that, I would like to check whether my data contain duplicate records or not. So therefore, I will click on Remove Duplicate. So in this Remove Duplicate dialog box, Excel will try to compare every field for identical record. So when I click OK, you notice that 3 duplicates values found and removed. So now I have 40 over 1,000 record. Just click OK to accept it. Now, be mindful that you won't be able to know which record has deleted. Okay, so remove duplicate will just instantly remove all the duplicated record from the database. Next, I'm going to create a pivot table by using this Summarize with Pivot Table. Okay, verify that the table range is sales data, which I already renamed just now. So when I click OK, what you will see immediately is a new worksheet created with a blank pivot table report layout. The field list will be displayed on the right side of the layout. Okay, let's give our pivot table a name. So the first chart I'm going to create is a monthly chart. So I'm going to rename this pivot table as monthly sales. Rename the worksheet as monthly sales pivot. So of course, we need the sales value as well as the date. Okay. Notice that when I drag the date field into the row area, or I click the checkbox to make the date field move to the row areas automatically, Excel will group the date into 3 different groups, which is years, quarters, and months. So the month is stored in the date field name. So the group field will be created, named years and quarters. So if you were to expand the field, you just click on the 2013 and click on the expand. That will expand to next level quarter, and you click on the expand again. That will expand to the month level. Okay, this feature is only available if you are using Excel 2016 and above. For those who use old versions, let me show you how it's going to look like. When I press Control Z to undo, that will ungroup the date instantly. So to do a manual grouping, what you need to do, just right click on one date, click on the group, and I'm going to group it into 3 groups as well: month, quarters, years. So if you don't get your date automatically grouped, this is how you can do it. So now we will get the groups back with years, quarters, and months. So the next thing you can do is we can organize the pivot table field. For instance, I'm going to add products to column area. Will give me a pivot table based on products and dates by years, by quarters, and by months. Okay, so let's format the values. So right click on any value within the pivot table, select number format instead of format cell, because number formats allow you to format based on the field you bring into the drop zone. So we bring in the sales field, number format will format the sales field, which will then format the entire pivot table. If you use format cell, you basically need to highlight all the numbers in order to do format cell. So go for number formats and double click on accounting style, or click on accounting style and then click OK. So this will format the pivot tables automatically. So I'm going to use line chart for these pivot tables. What we can do is click on pivot charts. On Analyze tab, you click on pivot chart and select line. Click OK. Now you have second type, line with markers. So if you prefer the line chart with markers, you can select the chart type line with markers. So then click OK. You notice that you will get the line charts created. Next, I'm going to move this chart into my dashboard worksheet. So let's create a new worksheet. Name it dashboard. Cut the chart and paste it over here. Now I'm going to clean up a little bit. So first of all, we are going to hide all those few buttons because we are going to use slicer and timeline to do the filter. So fill button is actually for you to filter the pivot chart. So right click and hide all fill buttons. So this will complete the first chart, which is monthly sales pivot. Next, we are going to create pivot for market sales. So the fastest way is to copy the pivot table. So I'm going to hold Control key, drag the worksheets monthly sales pivot. This is to duplicate the worksheet. So I have a copy of monthly sales pivot. So I'm going to rename it to market sales pivot. The pivot table name also change to market sales. And we are going to change the field. Instead of using the dates, I'm going to remove the dates. Okay, years, quarters, and replace with markets. So click on the pivot charts. So I'm going to use clustered column chart. Hide the few buttons. And I'm going to move the chart to my dashboard. Next, I'm going to compare sales versus quantity. What I can do is just duplicate the worksheet again. Rename the worksheets to sales versus quantity. I'm going to change a few. Remove the product fields and bring in the quantity field. I'm going to format the quantity field using number format. Number style, use thousand separator, 0 decimal places. Cost quantity doesn't have decimal places. So click OK. You'll be formatted to number with 1,000 separators. Okay, I'm going to draw a combo chart. So you can either go back to Analyze tab, use Pivot Charts to draw a combo chart and select combo. All right, then click on the secondary to bring the quantity data series to a secondary series. We can turn on this secondary axis. That is the first method. And click on the OK buttons. Now I'm going to show you a quick way. Since you know that you're going to build a combo chart, just go to the Insert tab and find Insert Combo Chart Comments. Select the second chart type, create clustered column line on secondary axis. So this is another way you can create a combo chart. So I'm going to hide the few buttons as well. Okay, cut the chart and bring it over to my dashboard. Okay, next we are going to create a sales trend chart. So I'm going to duplicate the worksheets again. Hold Control key, drag monthly sales pivots so that I have second worksheet. And I'm going to change the name to sales trend. Now over here, I need to draw two different charts. Sales trend for year 2013 and sales trend for year 2014. So I only need the sales and the month. Okay, the years, I'm going to place it as filters. So this is a sales, 12-month sales for both years. I'm going to change it to sales for year 2013. Okay. Fastest way to create a second pivot table on the same worksheet is again a copy and paste. Just copy your first pivot table and paste. So we're going to change it to 2014. So with this, you will have 2013 sales for 12 months and 2014 sales for 12 months. Just insert a column chart, clustered column. Now, when I insert a cluster column chart, you notice that the chart title is automatically displayed. So I'm going to just rename the chart title to 2013 sales trend. Okay, next, the pivot table need to be renamed. This is no longer monthly sales, but is sales for 2013. So since this is a sales trend, we are going to show trend line later. Okay, now before that, I'm going to create my second chart. This is 2014 sales trend. Okay, change the name of the pivot table. The sales 2014. Okay, we are going to hide the few buttons. And we are going to show the trend line. So turn off the grid line and the legend. And we show a linear trend line to display that the sales is actually going down in 2013. Okay, as for 2014, turn off the grid line legends and turn on the trend line to show the sales trend. And I'm going to show data label as well. Okay, of course it looks a little bit messy. We're going to clean it up later. Okay, so we're going to move it to our dashboard. Okay, so the pie chart is now ready, and we are going to continue with the formatting, clean up the chart. So let's start with the view of your Excel worksheet. I'm going to use 70% zoom out up to 70%. So that I can display all the charts. Okay, so let's plan your dashboard flow and layout. First of all, I'm going to make use of row 1 as a heading. So I'm going to merge cell. Okay, so the company name, let's say, is High Tech Marketing. Sales dashboard. Okay, so we're going to leave some space here for slicer. Now you're going to resize. So let's click on the chart and go on to the Format tabs. I'm going to resize it to roughly 8 and 23. Move the charts across to here. Okay, as for the sales trend chart, I'm going to resize it. Maybe just put a 6.5. $11.5. Okay, now how to move the legend to the top? Click on this chart elements commands. We are going to turn off the grid line and go to the legend, move the legend to the top, and I'm going to put the legend, okay, to the right hand side in the short bar. So turn on the chart title. I'm going to shift this over. So I'm going to shift the chart titles over here. Just by month. Okay, so I'm going to format the value to display in millions. So right click on the value axis, go to format axis, scroll down, go and get this display units and select millions. Okay, as for the second chart, I'm going to turn off the grid line and also we place a legend at the top. Display the chart title. Bring the legends over. And bring the chart title to the left hand side. I'll name it sales by market. Okay, so this is going to be formatted to millions. So we are going to change the display units to millions. And I'm going to change the font size. Reduce the font size. Okay, let's move on to 2013 sales trend. I'm going to turn the data labels to a vertical layout. So just click on style number 2. You notice that all the data label automatically rotate 270 degrees to this vertical layout. And I'm going to reduce the font size. Okay, so you notice that once you rotate the data labels using the style number 2, and the axis value will be turned off, but we need it to format the axis into millions. Therefore, we have to display the axis value again. Primary vertical axis. And now I can format it to millions. Display units change to millions. So for second chart, 2014 sales trend, I'm going to do the same format. Use display units as millions. Now I'm going to select the style. Okay, so again, the style number 2 will still turn off the value axis. So I'm going to chart elements. Axis and display the primary vertical axis again. Let's close the format chart. Locked. Okay. I'm going to turn off the grid line for both charts. Okay, let's format back the millions. Okay, close it. Okay, change your font size and move the title to the left. Okay, I'm going to size the plot area so that the number is not too close to the chart title. Okay. Next, I'm going to turn off the grid line on the worksheets. Let's go on to the View tab and turn off the checkbox for grid lines. So you notice that the grid line will be turned off. Your entire dashboard will be cleaned up, okay, nicely. I'm going to make these two charts same size. So you can select Shift key, hold on the Shift key, and click on both 2013 sales trend chart and 2014 sales trend chart. Go on to the Format tab. Maybe we use 11. Okay, that's a bit too big. So I'm going to change to 10. or maybe 10.5. So you have to test it out. Okay, that will be fine. And now we are going to align the charts for these two charts. If you want the alignment to be aligned at the bottom, you still need to hold the Shift key, select both charts, and then go to the Format tab, click on these alignment commands and set Align Bottom. So if you want to have a little bit gaps, or you have a multiple chart, you want to adjust the gaps with the same distance, you can follow by distribute horizontally. But this chart is already no gaps in between, so you can't distribute unless you make it smaller, which I'm not going to do that. So at this point, this chart is considered as done. Okay, let's move on to the combo chart. So I'm going to turn on the chart tiler, turn off the grid line, and place the legend at top. So we are going to move these legends to the right side of the charts and move the chart title to the left. Change the font size. So I'm going to use the chart title sales versus quantity. Okay, how to display data labels on this combo chart? Okay, of course, first of all, we are going to change it to display units as millions. Okay, now next I'm going to display data label. However, if I just use a data label checkbox, now Excel will simply put the data labels on the right of the line and outside the column chart. So in this case, you have to create data labels separately for two different types of charts. So I'm going to select the line charts, go to the chart elements commands, and go to the data labels, more data label positions. I'm going to set the data label above chart. That means above the line chart. As for column charts, I'm going to select the column chart series, go back to the data labels, and place the data label in the center of the column chart. So of course, at this point, you won't be able to read the figures. We are going to change the color. So we are going to Home tab. You can use this view color to change the color of the chart. Alternatively, you can go to Format tabs under Pivot Chart Tools and click on this Shape View commands to change the chart's color. Okay, both commands is okay. So when you select this color, you notice that you're now going to read the data easily. Now we're going to change the font size, smaller, so that it will be automatically wrapped to horizontal and wrapped down to next line if the data label is longer, okay, than one word. Okay, next, what about the column chart? Clustered column chart. Now, first of all, I'm going to change the style because you know that the style will turn off or turn on certain elements. So even though you start with chart elements, if you decided to change the style, some of the chart elements you have selected previously might be turned off automatically. So it's easier for you to start with the chart style instead of using chart elements. So we are going to use chart style number 2. Right, so notice that over here, the value axis again turn off. So you will turn the label to vertical style layout. So let's go back to here, and we are going to hide the grid line. And we are going to display, if you want to display axis title, you can display. So otherwise, you just display the axis value. Okay, so axis value is displayed, and we are going to format to millions. So you notice that the clustered column chart is currently formatted into millions. So if you cannot see the units, you try to adjust the plot area. Then you define that you want to display units. Scroll down and say I want to show display units label on charts. Okay, the word millions be shown. But if the plot area is too large, you'll be hidden. So that's why every time you try to adjust your plot areas to make sure that it's not there, then you display. Otherwise, you just turn on the format axis dialog box and just verify that it's turned on. Okay, as for the combo charts, you might want to display the axis title. So we can now go on to display axis title. Okay, of course, that will make the chart smaller. So you again have to resize the charts later, or make the font smaller to fit them in. So the axis title font can make smaller. This will be the sales and quantity. Okay, over here. So this is the market name. Now I'm going to show you if you want to create a dynamic charts label, for instance, sales by market. If I want to link to a charts label on a cell in one of the worksheets, I can do so. So what I'm going to do is I'm going back to this market sales pivot, give a name, which is the same name that I'm going to use, sales by market. So I'm going to give a name, sales by market. So instead of using the header I type in, I'm going to link the chart title to the header I enter in cell A2. So I select the chart title box, go to the formula bar, start with equal, and it's just a link formula. Click on A2, cell A2 on this market sales pivot worksheets, and I'm going to press enter. So it will actually link. So if I change name, sales by market for 2013 and 2014, the header on cell A2 change, where the dashboard will be updated instantly. Okay, let me just change it back. This is to show you how you can create a dynamic labels on charts. sales by market, and it will update back to sales by markets. Okay, so now we are going to add slicer to control entire dashboard. First of all, I'm going to add year slicer, and the year slicer is going to control sales by month, sales versus quantity, and sales by markets. So I can add the slicer to any of these three charts first. So click on one of the chart, go to Analyze tab, and click on Insert Slicer. So we plan to have 4 slicers: years, quarters, months, and products. And this 4 slicers is going to connect to the first chart. All the slicers are going to connect to the first chart. Therefore, I'm going to connect the months, the quarters, the years, and finally the products slicers all at once. Okay, you notice that the slicers will be created. Let's move the slicer over to the left hand side, and I'm going to display the slicer button in 2 columns per row. So I'm going to Slicer Tools Option tab, set 2 columns. Okay, 2 columns. Next, I'm going to turn off all these buttons without data. So right click on the slicer, go for slicer setting. You can also go to Slicer Tools Option tabs, click on slicer settings. All right, check this. Hide item with no data. That will hide those buttons without data. I'm going to resize it. Think more. Next will be the quarter. I'm going to put in the 2 column as well. Resize it. And hide item with no data. Okay, for months, I'm going to use 2 columns as well. We also hide item without any data. And we're going to move this here. Oh, this is 3.5. The width. And then we're going to move it here. That would be just nice on your entire dashboard. Okay, so notice that all this 4 slicer is currently able to filter the first chart, which is the sales by month. So when I click on 2013, you should get your 2013 sales, 2014. Okay, clear filters, you will get the sales for both years. Okay, let's go by quarter, 2013, quarter 1. Okay, quarter 2, clear. You still can go by 2013. But notice that what I said in my previous slide, the years is only connect to the first 3 charts. Okay, sales by months connect to the years. So we are going to go back to Slicer Tools Option tab, click Report Connections. So the first chart where you connect is already here, which is your market sales. And we have to connect to monthly sales and sales versus quantity. Including the sales. Okay, now you notice that I didn't rename my sales versus quantity pivot table. This is the pivot table name. So whenever you duplicate your worksheets, Excel is going to use the same pivot table name with different worksheet name. So I'm going back to sales versus quantity, and I need to rename this to sales versus quantity. So this is where just now I show you the naming convention is important. Okay, now when it comes to quarter slicer, we are going to link to only the first two charts, which is by month, sales by month, and sales versus quantity. So we link to sales by month and sales versus quantity. So you notice the name will be updated. Okay, so now when I click on the years slicer, okay, when I click on the quarter slicer, you only control these two charts, sales by months and sales versus quantity. Clear? As for the month, we are going to control the same two charts, which is sales by months, okay, and then sales versus quantity. We are going to connect it, the market. Okay, so when I click on the month, I should have monthly sales. Okay, so if you do not want to display the line chart as a straight line, therefore you can now make changes to the report connections, and maybe you just connect to sales by market, and we do not connect to monthly sales. So when you start to clear, your year slicer will therefore, all this, okay, clear. Then your quarter, clear your quarter slicer, okay, all the slicers, so you have by months. So you can actually disconnect them if, let's say, connections that you want to cancel, go back, you can just cancel the connections for the first chart. Okay. As for products, we are going to connect to all the 5 charts. So we are going to the report connections and turn on all the 5. So clear this. Okay, so you have single product sales now. So when I go back to sales by month, notice that the filter is applied here as well. On your pivots. This is the sales trend for 2 different sales. Okay, as to remove the slicer, you just need to delete it. Okay, if you want to remove the slicer, just press delete. So you can add a new slicer again. It's for years. And therefore you can hide. Go back to the 2 columns and resize it. At any point of time, so you can remove, resize. Okay. So if I were to remove the date slicer, now bear in mind, on your field list, the filter is still there. Okay, this is the reason why you don't get it updated here, even though you remove the slicer. So a lot of users have issue when they deal with the slicer filters. So what you can do is you can go back to your pivot tables, display the field list. So if you try to clear the filter from here, you are unable to get the clear filters on the field list date filters, because I've used slicer before. You clear filters from here. Right, this is very important. Okay, so even though you remove your slicer, sometimes the filter still controlled by the pivot table field list. So by removing the filters slicer, the filter is not cleared. And if you try to clear from pivot table, you notice that the clear filter from market is not available as well. Okay, from date is not available as well. So what you do is display the field list and clear the filters from the fields over here. Okay, now all the fields display, and I'm going to bring back the slicer. For month. Set 2 column, hide button with no data, and just need to fill it back. So you can have your scroll bar if you size it too small. So if you do not want to connect the month slicer to the first chart, we are going to make the connections. Only go by markets and by sales versus quantity, 2 charts, as what I showed. So when you start to click your filters, you'll get your years control. You can also use right click to display report connections. Market sales and quantity sales by years. So the years now control the tree chart. Okay, again, after remove and add it back. So clear filters. And for the quarter, it's controlling the two charts, sales by month and the sales versus quantity. As for monthly charts, we're going to make it control the two chart, sales by market and sales versus quantity. So clear filters. Okay, so for the products, it's currently controlling all the 5 charts, including the sales trend chart. So I want to monitor the sales for printer products. So click on printers. You can see your product trend go beyond 2 years. And this is a 2013 sales trend, only for 2013 printer sales trend, 2014 printer sales trend, and this is the printer sales for both year. But if I click on year 2013, now you'll get year 2013 sales trend for printers. So when I click, so I'm going to change color for the slicer using the slicer tools. So click on this light orange style, or you can click on the more command to select all this. The next one and the next one. So the color, if you want to change, you can just simply use the fill color at the home tab. Display the same color. You can also use the style, but keep in mind the style will change the elements. Let's change your fonts. Right, now what if now I'm going to change the control using timeline instead of using the slicer. Now before I make changes to timeline, I want to remove the grid line because it doesn't look very nice if I keep the grid lines because my chart is not the equal size. So to remove the grid line, you can just select the charts, go to the Format tab, Shape Outline, and No Outline. So when you remove the grid line, you don't have to worry too much on alignments because the border is not there. So if you want colors, you can actually put background colors, or you can even color the cell. If you like to add color this way, and I can remove the colors of the chart. Chart colors for the shape fill, no fill. Okay, I need a darker color instead. So this is where you make use of the cell color to create the frame for your chart instead of using the chart borders. So I'm going to cancel the outline. I'm going to put in the field. The chart view, cancel, and put the column chart views colors there. Okay, so this can consider to remove the field as well. Size it. So without the border, even though the chart go beyond here, up to here, so when you click away, you only have this boundary of the chart. You can actually size this column be a bit, make changes on that. Okay, so in the chart still working fine. Clear filters, and finally you clear filters. Okay, so how can we quickly convert this entire dashboard to make it control using timeline? And I'm not going to redraw the entire dashboard. So what you can do is hold Control key, duplicate the dashboard. Hold Control key, drag the dashboard worksheet. So this is how you duplicate the dashboard. And after you have done this, I'm going to delete all the slicer related to date, because we are going to use timeline. So select the sales by market. I'm going to insert timeline, okay, by selecting sales by market. Date, because timeline only based on date fields. You will be able to see other field name inside the insert timeline dialog box. So this is what you are going to see when you make use of timeline filters. So I'm going to resize the charts. Move the charts. Okay, this color I'm going to cancel. The easiest way, you just use auto fill. You don't even have to set it to no color. Just have to fill it up. Corner, drag. So I have the charts over here, and I'm going to shift it over. So now we're going to connect the timeline. Okay, before you connect the timeline, is go by months default. Okay, each individual month. I can make it to go by quarters. So now if I click on the quarters, the market will go by quarter. Clear filters. So I can connect it to sales trend, or I can connect it to sales versus quantity as well. I just announced two charts. Okay, so there are certain set of data. It might be hidden if you go into certain quarter without data. So together with monitor, printer sales, right? So the slicer you duplicate from your previous dashboards will continue to control all the 5 charts, even though you remove some of the slicer and add in the timeline. So now I'm going to change color on the timelines. Slicer, you can change your new different colors. This you can use a different color. So when you start to clear filters, clear filters. So this method is much easier than you have to recreate all your charts, okay, on a different dashboard. So you basically just put it in the same work file and you just duplicate entire dashboard if you want to keep the charts that you've already created in your previous dashboard. You are going to use the same charts. So dashboard with timeline. So just now I show you how you can use the same charts but change the control filter from slicer to timeline. Okay, this year, quarter, date, the month. We are now using a timeline. Okay, now I'm going to show you how you can customize the slicer design. So let's say if I do not want to use the slicer with this borderline, okay, I can therefore create a new style. You are not able to customize the slicer style from this given set of style, but you can redesign a new slicer style to be used, okay, in your dashboard. So I'm going to create a new slicer style and I'm going to call it a name, no border slicer. I'm going to cancel all the borderline. The name is called no border slicer style. So first of all, you have to define all the elements color because it's empty. a new style. Now, first of all, the whole slicer format we need to change. Okay, by default, if with border, the whole slicer background is without color. Now, if we cancel the slicer border, we need to put a background color. So you have to look at your dashboard background color. Currently, my dashboard background is white color. So I have to change my whole slicer to the same white color. Otherwise, you will still see the background color, even though you cancel the border. That will defeat the purpose. I'm going to create 4 buttons without any borders and without the header of the slicer. I'm going to turn off all these elements and only leave these 4 buttons. So what I'm going to do, the first step is change your whole slicer's background color. Format, fill colors, not border. Border is none, no border. So you first turn off the slicer border, because since you're going to create no border slicer style, and then you are going to fill the slicer with the same color as your entire dashboard's color. Click OK. So of course you don't see different, but Excel will show you that you have formatted whole slicer. So the name of element will be shown in bold. We are not going to do anything on header, because after all, we're going to turn off the header. This header we're going to turn off, but we need to design the slicer color for selected item with data. We are going to ignore those elements with no data, because remember just now we already turned off item with no data. We already turned off, so we don't have to bother about those no data. So selected item with data, meaning which color you are going to display when the user click on the slicer button. Currently is orange color. So now I'm going to change color. When the user click, I prefer the slicer is using this orange color. I prefer the font, okay? Should not be red, should not be a white color. I prefer the font in automatic black color, and I prefer to bold the text. Yeah. That is selected item with data. Unselected item with data. For those slicer buttons that your user didn't click, what color you are going to display? So I click on fill color again, select another color. The color you're going to display. So you have these 2 sets of color. So if you want a darker color, you can select a darker color. Okay, next, hover selected item with data. This is depend on whether you want the buttons to change color when your mouse pointer hover the buttons. So if you wanted to change color, you select a different color. If you do not want it to change color, you select the same color as the first one, selected item with data. Then the color would not change. Okay, let me show you. So later we change back, because I do not want the color to change. It doesn't look nice if the color blink. But I can show you now. Hover selected item with data. We're going to change a different color. Maybe a lighter color. If you totally change a different color, it doesn't look very nice. Okay, hover. And hover unselected buttons. Do you want another color or not? So in this case, I just choose, yeah, I want a different lighter color to be shown. So when I click OK, it doesn't apply. You are creating a new style, but you have not applied the style to your selected slicer yet. So the style will be stored inside the slicer style gallery, as a custom style, and the name no borders slicer should be there. So I have to click on the style to apply. When I point, this is called hover. Would you like this effect? So when I click, the rest will turn into darker gray. When I hover, another color. So this is the hover effect. So if you change all to same color, the same orange color, the same gray color, you don't have this hover effect. Okay. Now I'm going to clear the filters and I'm going to turn off the header. So to do so, you have to go back to the option tab. Slicer setting. You turn off the checkbox. Display headers. Turn it off. When I click OK, now you'll get a nice 4 floating buttons. Now you might have a question. How can we clear filters if you turn off the display header and the filter is not there? But actually you can do a right click, select clear filters from products to clear the filters. So you notice that timeline and slicer can work together. But the disadvantage of timeline is when your data come to the end of 2014, the 2015 timeline automatically display. And unfortunately, you are unable to customize timeline. Because slicer, you have slicer setting, but timeline, you don't have a timeline setting. So you have to keep it there with no data. Because 2015, we don't have data at all. So clear filters. And we can clear filters again from here. All right, so I've come to the end of my webinar. So I hope today's sessions you'll be able to learn something you can apply in your job instantly. Okay, thank you for attending. I hope to see you in one of my next courses. Thank you. You're welcome.